Well, hello, and welcome to another exciting edition of Coffee with Stephen. So, this week's blog is entitled The Present. And it's a little bit of a philosophical one. I do sort of tie it into weapons training at the end, but as many of you know who read my blog, I will not be held hostage to the singular requirement that everything that we talk about have to deal with firearms. Although in this one, there is a connection. Um, I was at my favorite alcoholic haunt a couple of days ago in Habanas at the Irvine Spectrum, munching on my empanadas while enjoying their classic old fashioned. And I was kind of paying attention to the people that were sitting at the bar around me. And one of the things that I noticed, while a lot of people were, sort of establishing a facade of being happy and everything else, you could see that there was an underlying sense of anxiety. And this manifested to some degree in the way that they were talking to each other, talking to me. And it all was based around two separate things. There was a focus on their past. In fact, one gentleman that I was talking to who was giving me his entire life story, this was sort of the prelude that has brought him to his present. The problem is that within the present, there was no physical context. He lived in the past, effectively blaming every ill that he suffered for his developmental process getting to this point. And then he would skip over the present and now look to the future. The future is where there was promise. The future was the possibility of enlightenment, of connectivity with other individuals, riches and everything else. And yet the present, he was completely devoid of. There was no focus on the now. And this got me to start thinking as I was sort of interfacing with other people there. This was sort of a constant theme. There was a focus on the past and then a focus on the future with no interest whatsoever in the present. This is problematic for a number of different reasons. First and foremost, we live in the present, okay? In the blog, I reference a story that Sandy listens to this app. It's like a sleep app that, celebrities read stories. And I've had to suffer through listening to Matthew McConaughey say the same frickin' story every single night. But within the story, there is a portion where he relates a granddaughter talking to a grandfather, and the granddaughter admits that she's fearful of the future. The grandfather says something that, again, connecting the dots here between my time at Habanas and this story, he says, nothing in the future can hurt us because all that stuff exists in a different time. It exists in the future. The only thing that potentially can harm us is what exists in the now. That's a bit of a paraphrase, but there's something instructive in that. When we deal with our weapons training, we deal with it with the understanding that we may have to use this training in the future. In fact, we actually do our manipulations based on the possibility that we would have a stoppage in the cycle of operations or something like that in the future. And we set ourselves up for the best possibility of success. So having a knowledge of the fact that something may happen in the future simply allows us to be focused on the present. And that's where we need to keep all of our interests, here on the present. Anyways, I hope you enjoy the blog. Read it, disagree with it. That's perfectly acceptable as well. You can always comment directly on the blog. You can email me at stephen@artemishq.com. And as always, I want you to train constantly, train consistently, train repetitively, and train with purpose. Above all else, stay safe.